using reading text to teach language. This would be a 1-hour session starting at 5:30 and would end by 6:30 p.m. I'll just tell you something about the expert. Ms. Manisha Dak is a teacher educator, materials developer, and language assessor with 20 years of experience in ELT. She holds an MA, MEd, MA, TESOL, Delta, and a range of professional certificates from universities in India, the UK, and the USA. She currently offers services to multiple national and international organizations, including the British Council, IDP, Macmillan, Cambridge English, and SJAM Publishing. Let me just tell you about a few rules for the day for today's session, dear participants. The participants will be muted throughout the entire session. Please ensure you have a pen and a paper to note the important information. The chat box will only be enabled during the Q&A round and disabled for the rest of the session. A quiz will be conducted at the end of today's session. The Google form link will be shared on the chat box for the quiz. You will have to fill in all the mandatory details. So once the session gets over, I shall be sending the link for the Google form on the chat box, and I would also share the QR code, and you could log in through that, wherein you have to fill in all the mandatory details. Please register through the email ID which you've used to register to all of these sessions. Suppose that 3 winners will be selected based on the quiz score. Each winner will receive an Amazon voucher worth up to rupees 5,000 as a prize. For the e-certificates, teachers must fill out a feedback form to receive the e-certificate. After the session, the feedback form will be sent to your registered email ID. Some more important points regarding the quiz, dear participants, that I would like to share. We will announce 3 winners based on the test scores. Each winner will receive an Amazon voucher worth rupees 5,000. I've already shared that with you. If there are more than 3 winners, we will select 3 individuals based on the lucky draw. And only the registered participants will be eligible for the prizes. So again, the same part I'll repeat. The participants who have registered for the SJAN CPD sessions, which were held on the 8th of April, the 15th of April, and today, which is the 22nd of April, 2023. Also, some important point here, the quiz link will be active till 11:59 p.m. on the 23rd of April, 23. So by that time, you all are most welcome. You could log in through the QR code. You could join that, the link that I'm going to share on the chat, and you could fill in all the details to participate in the quiz. So I welcome Ms. Manisha. Over to you, Manisha.
Thank you, Monica. Thanks, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the 3rd webinar on the topic of reading. Those of you who could not attend the previous 2 webinars, I just want to summarize those 2 because today's webinar is an extension of the first 2 webinars. So in the first webinar, we focused on the sub-skills of reading, how we can design different tasks to help learners develop these sub-skills such as reading for gist, reading for specific piece of information, details, inference, all those things. And the second webinar was based on the strategies to help your learners become efficient readers. And we also looked at some of the data which showed how poor is the reading of our children in India, and the data was worrisome. So we looked at some of the strategies that we as educators can use. In today's webinar, we are going to look at how we can use different reading texts to teach language. Now, when I say language, obviously we are talking about English language here, English language classroom, but the techniques that we will be discussing here are more or less applicable to other languages as well. So if there are teachers teaching other languages like Hindi, Gujarati, or any other regional language, probably you will be able to use some of these techniques even there. All right, so let's get started. In this webinar, we are going to look at what different types of reading texts you can use in your classrooms. Now, I've also used the word literature. So every time I say reading text or literature, I'm kind of using these terms interchangeably. So when I say literature, I don't necessarily mean literary texts such as novels, poetry, drama, but it could be anything: articles, reports, articles in the newspaper, posters, adverts. It could be any kind of reading text that you can use in your classroom. We will then look at why we should use text to teach language or literature to teach language. And then I'll be more than happy to share some ideas with you that you can use in your classrooms to teach language. How you can teach grammar or vocabulary or functional exponents using these texts, and also build learners' productive skills that are writing and speaking. So that's going to be the crux of the webinar today. All right, let's begin with an activity. So be ready with your chat boxes, like keep the chat box open. On the screen, I'm going to show you examples of reading text. You need to identify what type of reading text each one is. And I've given you the first letter to help you. Okay, so here you go. In the chat box, please write the number 1 and what the type is. So look at the pictures. The pictures are the clues that will help you guess the text type. 1, chat. No, we are talking about reading text. Very good. Comic. Yes. Comedy could be another answer, but that doesn't look like a comedy there. Look at the picture. Very good. So 1 is comic. Yes. What's the next one? Number 2. Number 2 is not game. It starts with S. Some of you have already answered that. Yes, that's a story. Well done. Number 3. That passage is a title. Please look at the type of the text. Okay, some of you are giving the answers. Yes. Yes, 3rd one is poetry. Fantastic. Number 4. Okay, we have moved to number 4. Some of you have started answering. Fantastic. That's a novel. And number 5. Number 5 is not novel. Netflix. That's a good guess. I like that, Palak. No, I'm looking for something else. Okay, people have gone ahead. News feed could be if I print the news feed on a. But look at the picture. That should give you the clue. Anybody? Number 5. Okay, I can help you. It's non, N-O-N, and then guess the second half. Very good, Anvita. Anita, sorry. Yeah, Anita, that's right. It's non-fiction. Yes, Preeti, that's non-fiction. And number 6, some of you have already written. Number 6 is drama. Fantastic. Well done, everybody. So these are the 6 types of examples that I've shown here. Now, these are not the only types of reading text. In your chat box, can you type some more types of reading text that you can use in your classroom? Yeah. Can you think of any other reading text or type of reading text? Very good. Yes, that's a good answer. Biography. Tragedy. Yes, different genres you can use. All right. Newspaper, articles. Yes, fantastic. Travelogue. Brilliant. Narrative. Journals. Fantastic. Yes, Pala, conversations can be very useful. Thank you. Thank you. So these are all different types of reading texts that we can use in our classrooms. Now, why should we use a variety of texts in our classrooms? So one simple reason is that the way language is used in one type of text is very different from the way language is used in another type of text. For example, you look at poetry, all the symbolism and the poetic devices that are used in that text is very different from, let's say, the descriptive language used in novels, or very conversational sort of language used in stories. or matter-of-fact tone used in nonfiction. So the style, the tone, the choice of words is very different from one type of text to another. And therefore, we should use different types of reading text, because ultimately we are preparing learners for real life reading and real life production of language. Okay. Now, we are going to look at the reasons why we should use literature. And when I say literature, I don't mean literary text alone, any type of literature that's available. Why should we use literature to teach language? I'm going to show you one reason at a time. And the key word in that reason has jumbled letters. And your task is to unjumble the letters to complete that reason. Okay, so here you go. Can you guess the word? That's the first reason why we should use literature in the classroom to teach language. Okay, that was easy, I guess. I got one answer. Others? Yes, that's authentic. Yeah. We should use literature in our classrooms because authentic materials reflect real life language. And the aim of our language classroom is actually to prepare them or prepare our learners as communicators in real life. So if you expose them to authentic language, they provide natural models of language to our learners. Okay, be ready for the next one. So that's authentic. All of those who have written the answers, well done, correct. Number 2, guess the word. Yeah. Okay, answers are coming in. Yes, fantastic. That's linguistic. So literature provides a rich source of linguistic input. And when we say linguistic input, we refer to a variety of grammar structures, a range of vocabulary, a variety of functional exponents that the texts are using. And that is why also we should use literature in the classroom to teach language. Number 3. Guess what's the word? Yes, fantastic. That's meaning. Some of the texts do not have deeper meaning, and probably that meaning changes from one learner to another. And because there are multiple meanings attached to a piece of text, it generates more discussions in the class. And that's another reason. Number 4, the answer. Okay, look at offers different. So I'm looking for a plural verb, a plural word, sorry. Okay, you're right, fine, perspective, I give that, it's perspectives, because the word is different. So it offers different perspectives to life, sometimes even life-changing. So you can have one limited perspective, your learners can have one limited perspective, but when they read books by different authors or books from different cultures, I think their perspectives to the same thing changes. And sometimes they can have deep impact on their own thought processes and their life goals. So that's perspectives. And number 5, and the last one. Number 5. Very good. Cultures. So exposure to a variety of cultures. Any language is deeply rooted in its culture. And therefore, when we read the text from that culture, it makes learners more sensitive towards that culture, and probably it also contributes towards making our learners global citizens at the end. Okay. All right, so these are some of the reasons for which why we should use literature in the classroom. Do you have any other reason besides the ones that I've mentioned on the screen? Any other reason? Type in the chat box. It serves the purpose of communication. That's right, Kushdeep. Anything else? Okay. Social knowledge. Yeah, I agree to that. So more or less culture again, when we talk about society, the structure of it, the culture that goes into it. Yeah. Okay, but thank you so much for those who responded. So yes, these are some of the very valid, important the core content of the webinar today. These are some of the terms that we need to understand. So when we talk about the ELT field, English language teaching field, language has a particular meaning. Okay, so when we say language, or when we say context or text-based presentation of language and noticing, these I'm going to show you the description or the definition of each. Try and match the term with the definition. Giving you about 15 seconds of time to do this. And as you send in the answers, also look at what others are writing. So that would give you a fair idea whether your answer is the same as others. 1D is correct. So language refers, in the context of ELT, when we say language, it doesn't mean English language. Of course, it is English language. But when we say teach language through literature, what we mean is teach grammar, vocabulary, and functional exponents with the help of those texts. Number 3, people are saying B and C. Let's look at, so it's context. The answer is B. This is a setting. So context talks about people, events, places, locations. Where are the characters? What do they do? Which era is it set in? Is it the modern story or the story from the ancient era? So all those details form a part of the context. That's number 2. Text-based presentation of language. 3 is A. It is an approach in which we present the language first. We present the text first, which means if you're doing a listening lesson or if you're doing a reading lesson, you do your listening text and reading text first, which means you do activities that will help your learners understand the listening text or understand the reading text. And then you pull out the language from that text, draw your learners' attention to that, and teach that language and allow them to practice. That entire approach is called text-based presentation of language, which is what we are going to look at today. Noticing, number 4 is not B, it is it's letter C. In this, learners are encouraged to pay close attention to the target language which is used in the text. So for example, if I want learners to learn adjectives, if that's the focus of my lesson, then I would ask them to look at the text and identify the adjectives from it or the words that describe places, people, things. So these are the terms that we need to have a good understanding of to be able to understand or make sense of what I'm going to talk next. Thank you everyone for your responses, and let's move to the next one. Now, we said that it is important to teach language in context. Now, why is it important to teach language in context? Tell me. Why can I just not go to the classroom and tell them, okay, these are the words, these are called adjectives. And I can just have a list of words and then I can do activities to teach them those adjectives. Why is it important to have context? Like a setting, people, character, some sort of story. Anyone? Okay, let's understand this with an example. Clear idea, thank you, yes. For experiential learning, follow syntax of language. Very good. I think follow syntax of language. How language is used. Very good. That's a good point to teach because of sequence. Could be to create interest. All of that, yes, definitely. The purpose of any activity in our language classroom is to create interest. But there's a particular reason why we should use context to teach language. Now, let's understand this with the help of an example. So what is the meaning of the word? Yeah, you can write it in Hindi. So what does this word mean? What is the meaning of the word? Does anybody? Ye shabd, very good. Thank you for writing that in Hindi. So shabda, that's the meaning in the first sentence. Now read the next sentence and tell me what's the meaning of the same word. So can I have a word with you? Fantastic, to talk. So can I talk to you? That's the meaning of the word in the second sentence. Let's look at the third one. I give you my word. What's the meaning here? That's right, promise. I give you my word. That means I promise. I promise. Commitment, very good. That it could also mean commitment. All right, let's look at the next one. So we move to number 4 now. And tell me the meaning. Okay, somebody says news. What else? Anything else? Okay, info, matter. So news, yes. Information, evidence, okay. Yeah, so close to it. Yeah, so word has it. It could be rumor, it could be news. Yeah. Let's look at this one. If you want the help, just say the word. What is the meaning of word in the last one? Hint, okay, just say the word. What does that mean? Okay, ask, fine. Request, ask. All right, so state it clearly. If you need help, say it. Say that you need help. That's the meaning of the word in the last one. Now, so we looked at just one word, one vocabulary item to understand why context is so important. Yeah, because the same word has different meanings. Look at the last one. What do you think is the meaning of the word there? Not key. Okay, describe, but there's not describe. Right, very good. Document, right. How should I word this letter? How should I write it? How should I draft it? Very good. So that's the meaning. Okay. So the same word, I'm so sorry. So the same word has different meanings in different contexts. Now we looked at a vocabulary item. Let's look at grammar. How grammar can also change meaning. So what is the meaning of the word or the modal verb can? What do you think? Let's look at the first one. What do you think is the meaning of? Yes, ability. Yeah, you're able to do something. Shakti hai, somebody says. So it talks about, or we use can to talk about our abilities. Or if we use it in a negative sentence, then we talk about lack of abilities or a particular ability. Okay, now let's look at the use of can in the next one. What do you think is the meaning here? You can stay in the country if you have a visa. Okay, permission, very good. That's the meaning of the next one. Let's look at the third one. Yes, allowing is fine. You're eligible to stay, that's fine, yeah. The third one, can I use your board pens? Mine have dried out. Okay, so it could be permission, it could be an indirect request. Okay, fantastic, well done. And let's look at number 4. She can't have done that assignment on her own. She can't have done that assignment herself. What do you think is the meaning? Probability, okay. Yes, I mean, somebody is unable, I mean, you think that somebody is not capable of doing that. Yes, not capable of doing that. So disbelief, you're surprised that somebody has done that and you say, she can't have done that by herself. Okay, let's look at the next one. We can get some snacks to celebrate the end of the course. What's the function here? We can get some snacks to celebrate the end of the course. Party, okay, but what's the person doing? Somebody who's saying it. Suggestion, very good. Somebody said suggestion. Somebody is suggesting that, all right, we can get some snacks for our celebration. Okay, so one modal verb can have different functions depending on the context in which that is used. Now, let's look at an example of tense. Now look at these two sentences. He's playing tennis and she's swimming in a school competition next week. Both the sentences use present continuous tense. Tell me if the meaning is the same. So he's playing tennis. Can I see that person play tennis now? He's playing tennis. Can I see that person play tennis now? Yes or no? Yes. So he's playing tennis. I can see that person. I mean, yeah, a further context will make it clearer, of course. Let's look at the next one. She's swimming in a school competition next week. Can I see her swim right now? No. Is it a planned action that's going to happen in the future? Yes. Okay. So the same structure, but the moment you change the context, the meaning changes. I think this is probably enough evidence by now that you must use context before you teach grammar or before you teach vocabulary. So never go to your classroom and say, today we are going to learn present simple, and then write the sentence, I get up at 6 o'clock, or whatever. So have a context, have a text in which, or tell a story to them which uses the target structure. All right. Now let's look at the next one, which is called, just a minute, it's called noticing. So we looked at language. Language talks about grammar, vocabulary, functional exponents. Then we looked at context, why it is important to use context to teach the language. Now let's look at noticing. So what is noticing? In noticing, we encourage learners to pay close attention to the target language used in the text. So they have already done activities to help them understand the overall idea or the details of the text. Now they're thoroughly familiar with the text, and it's time for them to pay close attention to it. Now let's do an activity and understand how to do noticing in your class, which will happen after the text has been presented, after the text has been comprehended by learners. So look at this text here. I want you to underline the sentences with can and could. And obviously here, because we may not be able to underline, can you just write one example of can and one example of could from the text? So in your classroom, you will ask learners to underline all the sentences with can and could in the text. This is called noticing. So they will ignore all the other details and focus only on those sentences that use can and could. Thank you, Tanya. Yes, so we have some sentences coming in. One with can, one with could should be enough. All right, got it. So once you have asked your learners to identify the sentences with can and could, elicit from them. Okay, and if you have projected the text, you can underline the sentences on the board for everybody's clarity. Now, once that is done, it is important for you as a teacher to check whether your learners have understood the meaning of can and could. So they could underline, and that doesn't require any understanding, right? But you want to check whether they have understood the meaning of these two. Now, for that, we use something called guided discovery, which is completely the opposite of what many teachers do in their classrooms. So I've come across classrooms where teachers stand in front of the classroom and explain the rules of grammar. And they'll say can is used to talk about abilities in the present, could is used to talk about abilities in the past, and then they'll give examples and all of that. Now here, we are saying, please do not explain. Let learners work with the sentences on their own and help themselves discover the rules. So how to do that? Now, for this one, so all these sentences from the text are displayed. You ask the learners to study the sentences and complete the rules on their own. So they look at the sentences and complete rules A and B. Can you choose the correct option in A and B, please? So use can/could to talk about abilities in the present. Is it can or could for the first one? The first one, look at the sentences, yeah, to talk about the abilities in the present, not the past. So the answer for the first one is can, because we're talking about the abilities in the present. The next one, use can, could to talk about abilities in the past. The answer is could there. So learners work in groups and they figure out these rules on their own with teacher monitoring closely. Now, some of the learners might get the answers wrong. In that case, you have to take one step further and ask concept check questions to check the understanding of meaning. So for example, if I say, he can still serve, and my concept check questions could be, he can still serve. Am I talking about the past or the present? Write the answer in the chat box. He can still serve. Am I talking about past or the present? Present, very good. Am I talking about his ability of surfing in the present? Yes or no? Fantastic. Okay. So you have such concept check questions and elicit answers from your learners, which is another piece of evidence for you to say that, yes, my learners have understood or not understood the concept. And you do the same thing with sentences with could. So by the end of this, the meaning is clear. And then you obviously drill the sentences to clarify pronunciation. And then you analyze the form wherein you say subject plus can plus base form. And learners should be able to use that formula to frame many more sentences. Now, how do you extend this to develop their speaking skill? So once they have understood the meaning, form, and pronunciation of the target structure, an activity like this would help. So you give them preparation time. Never ask your learners to talk straight away because you're catching them unaware. Give them some preparation time to them to formulate, to conceptualize and formulate their thoughts. In table like this, they can just simply make notes. They can talk about a particular age and think of things they could or couldn't do then and now, things that they can't do. They make some notes, put them into groups, and then learners will talk to each other. It is also important to give a listening purpose to other learners. How do you know whether the other learners are listening to them? And therefore, you tell them, as you listen to your partners, find out if you have similar abilities, if you could do similar things or different things at a particular age. And then at the end of that discussion, your feedback is based on whether they could or couldn't do similar or different things at a particular age, or what they can't do currently. So that's how you can build their speaking skills. Okay, now let's go to, sorry, just a minute. Yeah, now, so we spoke about speaking. Now let's talk about writing. How can we help our learners learn grammar and also develop their writing skills? Now, I'm going to make use of the illustrations. Happiness is. How many of you have heard of happiness is, and then people describe happiness is meeting your best friend. Happiness is. How many of you have seen that in real life or have done that? Okay, I've done that at least. I'm sure some of you have also done it. So that idea was by Ralph Laser and Ly Swirling. So one day, Ly Swirling was able to answer all her emails and her inbox was empty. And she said, happiness is seeing your inbox empty. And then Ralph said, happiness is taking a hot tub bath. And that gave them an idea, and they posted it on Facebook. What makes you happy? And whatever people wrote, they started illustrating those things. So I'm going to show you some of these illustrations and tell you how we can help learners learn grammar using those illustrations. So please look at these 4 illustrations and read the sentences. So happiness is not having to set the alarm for the next day. I wish I could do that someday. All right, now I'm going to display 4 structures. You need to match the picture with the structure. So match A to D with 1 to 4. This is called form analysis. That's what we do in our language classrooms when we want to draw learners' attention to how the sentence is structured. Can you match? And this is a guided discovery. So I'm not telling my learners how to frame the sentence. I am letting them do it on their own with the help of their peers, encouraging collaborative learning in my classroom without the interference of the teacher. So the teacher is only monitoring, helping them. Yes, A is 4. All right. Thank you. Here are the answers. So once the learners have understood the structure, you can elicit more such sentences from them to know whether they've actually understood the structure. Now, can you try? So for picture B, let's say when you love your job, that's the structure. Can you use that structure and frame more sentences? So for example, happiness is when you love your job. If I have to say, I would say happiness is when I go for my morning walks. That's my sentence. Can you write any other sentence in the chat box? Thank you. The answers have been displayed. So if you can now write using the structure, write your own sentence. Very good. Happiness is when I go for a family trip, when I talk to myself. That's interesting, Anjali. Right, now look at Sonali's sentence. Happiness is when I is to see my mother. The structure is different. Happiness is, and then the infinitive, to see. But the correct structure. So your learners will also be able to come up with a variety of structures. Very good. Now, so here is a task. I want you to follow the structures that I have written. So thank you. You have used your own structures in some of the sentences. But I am giving, you are my learners right now. I'm giving you these descriptions, I mean, these illustrations. Look at the illustration, use these structures, okay, when plus subject plus verb, and I've given an example below each formula. Use the formula and write your own sentence. So for the first one, happiness is, look at the illustration, what can you write? So please write A, B, C when you're writing, so we know for which illustration you're writing your sentence. Okay, please number the sentence. So write the letter of the picture, A, B, or C. Happiness is when I go to school. Okay, a lot of people are using when. Now, I don't want anybody to use when. Can you try another structure? So let's say not having to. Can you try that and make a sentence on any of the illustrations? Thank you. Thank you, Pavitra. Happiness is not having curly hair. Fine, that's a nice sentence. But I wanted to use not having to, that structure. Okay, I think people are very comfortable with the structure when, because that comes very easy. Try using different structures, because that's what you're going to encourage your learners to do. You don't want them to use only one structure. They should be able to use a variety of structures to show their writing competence. Not having to, after to, it's a verb. I mean, it's the bare form of the verb, to get up, for example. Very good. Happiness is not having to go to work on Monday. Brilliant. That's, sorry, it just went away, but Shiv. Happiness is teaching students, ignoring. All right, okay, so you got an idea, right? So in the groups, you give such illustrations to them and help them, give the formulas to them, the analysis, the examples, and learners create their own sentences. Now here, you have not taught them the structure. You help them discover the structure on their own. They followed the structure and then wrote the sentences. And they will definitely be making mistakes. That's where the teacher's role comes in. You monitor closely and say, all right, listen, having to is followed by the action word. So please look at your sentence again. What can you add there? So never give away the right answer to them. Always encourage or give clues to them to relook at the sentence and correct it themselves. So that's a simple idea of using that text to not just teach grammar, but also teach writing, help your learners practice grammar and writing. And we also looked at speaking. Okay, Now let's look at vocabulary. How do you teach vocabulary using different types of text? And I'm here not talking about teacher teaching. I think today the focus is on guided discovery tasks, designing the task in a way that you're guiding learner through the process of discovering the meaning on their own. You're only a facilitator. So never stand in front of the class and explain the meanings to them or explain the rules to them. Help them discover. If you think they haven't understood the meaning, ask your concept check questions and then get the answers from them. Okay, let's look at teaching vocabulary now. So for this one, I have used the script of a TED Talk by Matt Cutts. And the title of the TED Talk is Try Something New for 30 Days. And I have only taken some parts of that text and I've highlighted certain phrases in this script. Look at the phrases highlighted in purple and tell me what kinds of phrases are these? Can you term them? So follow in the footsteps of, or give it a shot, or stuck in a rut. What are these phrases called? Anyone? Yes, Shivangi, that's right. Idioms, and they're called idiomatic expressions. Okay, so I can, with the help of this text, I can draw my learners' attention to a lot of idiomatic expressions used throughout this tape script. This script. Now, one way of doing this is, and this we did in the last webinar. So go to the second webinar on strategies to. No, I think even the first one, sub skills of reading, and also the strategies to help your learners become efficient readers. In both these webinars, I'm talking about how you can encourage learners to use contextual clues to guess the meaning. So you encourage learners to see what comes before the phrase, what comes after the phrase, and then you help them guess the words, the meaning of these phrases. And they do it in groups. And then at the end, you elicit the meanings from them. You ask your concept check questions. So for example, I was stuck in a rut. And you say, okay, was I happy with the situation? No. Was it boring? Was the situation boring for me? Yes. Would I be happy with the change if I am stuck in a rut? Yes. So these are the concept check questions that you ask your learners to know whether your learners have understood the meanings of these phrases. Give it a shot. Have I done it before? No. Am I going to do it for the first time? Yes. Am I sure whether I'm going to succeed? No. I'm just going to. Does it mean to try? Yes. So these are the concept check questions that you can ask your learners to know whether they have understood. Now, sometimes the learners are not able to use the contextual clues and guess the meaning. What do you do in such cases? In such cases, you design a different kind of a guided discovery task. So this is another TED Talk, Every Kid Needs a Champion by Rita Pearson. And look at the 3 words that I have chosen from the talk: arduous, reforms, and strutted. These are the 3 words in purple, A, B, and C. Now, I want my learners to guess the meaning, and therefore I have given the context and I have given 3 meanings to them. They read the context and then guess the meaning on their own. So everyone, can you please try? A, can you tell me what's the meaning of arduous? So don't depend on your own knowledge right now. Read the context, read the meanings, and tell me. That's right, it's 1. Now then you can ask your learners, what makes you choose answer number 1? Yeah. And then elicit the justification from them. And therefore, you know that it was not just mere guesswork. The learners actually guessed the, understood the context and tried to work out the meaning from the context. B, okay, I have a brilliant group of students here. They have given me the answers to B as well. Thank you very much. So B is reforms. The answer is 3, improvement. Some of you, I think 1 or 2, I could see B as well. It's not B. Why? Because it says changes could be better or could be worse. And here we are actually talking about change for better, and therefore the answer is improvement. So you elicit that kind of justification from your learners to get clarity. The last one, C. Yes. And then you can also ask learners why 2 and 3 in C are not the correct answers. So tell me, hid behind something. Why is that not the correct answer? So your learners might say, well, if they hid behind something, they won't be able to get others' attention. The whole idea is to get others' attention, and therefore they can't hide behind something. Exactly. Silpa. The boy strutted, followed secretly, the same justification. If they followed secretly, then they won't get the attention because the other person is not aware of your presence. And therefore, such justifications help you get the piece of evidence from learners. Okay. So this is using audio and the script that is there. Let's also look at some of the other scripts. So this I have taken from a famous speech, I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. And you look at the way Martin Luther has used some of the phrases. Look at the highlighted ones. So look at the repetition 100 years later, getting repeated every now and then in the paragraph, or still sadly crippled by, or the chains off, or a lonely island off. Now, what I want my learners to do is follow this pattern, this structure, and change words, but they have to retain most of the highlighted ones. So 100 years later, they can replace 100 years with anything else, but they have to retain the phrase. So that's one, and I'll give you some of the examples written by students. Look at the next one. Again, we refuse to believe that. And you draw your learners' attention to the way the language is used and ask them, why do you think the language is being used or repeated in the paragraph? And also clarify the meaning of the other highlighted words. Look at the last one that has been taken from A Tale of Two Cities, and look at the way the contrast has been used in that. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. Now, once your learners have observed the piece of text and have understood the meanings of these words, these phrases, and you can use different techniques to teach them the meanings or design guided discovery tasks to help them understand the meanings of these phrases. Then ask learners to recreate these texts using their own words. Yeah. For example, so this was the example given to students. See what my students have written. Just read it, and that will give you an idea how your students can write. Yes, so they have replaced 100 years with 20 years later, and then retain some of the phrases and use the repetition. Look at the next one. So the more your learners write such pieces of text, even if they're reproducing some of the phrases that they have read, even if they're producing some of the phrases that they have read, it gets into their memory, and therefore it expands their vocabulary and also add to their writing skills. Now, how do you develop speaking? There are famous dialogues, quotes in literary texts. You take them, ask your learners, what's your take? Put them, give one quote to one learner, ask them to think of what's their take on that quote, and then put the learners with different quotes together and ask them to share their take. So this is called a jigsaw grouping. We looked at it in the last webinar as well, and that could create a lot of discussion in your classrooms. So that's a very simple way of developing learners' speaking skills or oral fluency. Okay, let's look at one more. These are some of the examples of the students writing. So you ask them to write their own quotes. Okay, so they read the quotes, they discuss the meanings of those quotes, and then you ask them to write their own quotes. I later noticed that the first quote is actually given there on the internet. The learner might have read long back, but the learner remembered it and produced it again when asked. So it's all right as long as they are producing it without looking at or without Googling it, which means that it has become a part of their vocabulary or part of their language storeroom from which they can put it out and produce as and when needed. So that can be another writing activity. You can put up these quotes in the classroom, ask learners to go around and see what others have written. People can actually show the quote and ask others what they understand by the quote, and it could generate into a lot of discussion. This could also work as your materials, for the next speaking activity. So instead of giving the real quotes, you could actually give the quotes created by your students and then do the same activity that we would do with quotes otherwise from the literary text. So that's another simple idea. Retelling stories is one more effective way of helping learners with their oral fluency. Give them short stories and ask them to retell the story to their friends. Before they retell, they should have understood the story. So please remember, all these activities can be done only after you have done enough to help learners comprehend the text. So comprehension of text is very important before you can use text-based presentation of language approach in your classes. Now, tell me, what are the benefits of asking learners to retell the stories in your class? What are the benefits? So I'm not talking about telling stories, I'm talking about retelling stories. Very good. Remembering boosts the memory of their learners. Very good. Recall is another skill. Checks their understanding. Fantastic. Improves vocabulary. Okay. Right. Yes. And sometimes you can also ask them to change the person. So if it's the first person, you can ask them to narrate the story using the third person, or vice versa. Or you can ask them to take on the role of one of the characters in the story and then retell the story using that perspective. So doing these little variations, even under retelling, helps learners develop different kinds of skills. So yes, yeah, role play is another way. Thank you, Sonali. Role play is what? Okay, so tell me. Let's talk about role play. But now that somebody has already written, if you ask learners to role play the story, what are the benefits of that, or what skills does it develop when we talk about language? So you are asking them to act out the story. You know, that's a little different from role play actually. But let's say acting out stories. How does it help your learners? Very good, Kushdeep. Voice modulation. Yeah, they render the dialogues, looking at the emotions and sentiments expressed by those words in the text. Helps with their pronunciation. Thanks, Ambika. Story will be clear. Yes, that's also correct. Training in dialogue delivery. And that's important when it comes to oral fluency, because dialogue delivery is not just about reading out something. It's about putting meaning to it, putting intonation to it, saying it with emotions, body language, facial expressions. Fantastic. So we are not just talking about language, we are also talking about paralinguistic features. And when we talk about paralinguistic features, we talk about facial expressions, body language, use of gestures, all of that. And it also develops their writing skills or speaking skills, because they have to decide upon the dialogues. So let's say sometimes the dialogues are not there, it's a descriptive story. And once in a while the dialogues appear, they have to figure out how they would take clues from the description and convert them into a physical play. So that's a very effective way of engaging all your learners in a collaborative manner and help them develop with their thinking skill, critical thinking, also collaborative thinking and communication. Right. Now, practicing conversations. So if you are doing, let's say, a listening lesson in your class, you will have the audio files. And some of the audio files have conversations in them. Yeah. Now, sometimes, so it could happen in two ways. You ask your learners to design their own conversations. That's a higher order thinking skill. But sometimes your learners are not able to create their own conversation. That doesn't mean that you can't ask your learners to practice the same conversations as they heard in the audio file. So for example, here, let's say the lesson is about taking something back to a shop. How do you return a product that you've just bought from a shop? That's what you're teaching your learners, and you're teaching them useful functional exponents. And there is a script that is given to you as part of your audio file. Now, again, you do the noticing task. So tell me, what are the phrases in this script that you can use when you want to return a product to a shop. What are some of the phrases that the customer can use or a salesperson can use? The phrases that you can use with any other product, not just the product that this person is returning here, which is shoes, but what are some other phrases? So for example, can I help you is a phrase that that the salesperson can use with anybody whosoever enters the store. What are some of the other phrases? Or even parts of phrases, if not the complete phrase. Very good, Naz. Do you have? Yeah, and I can, so here the person is asking, do you have these in an 8? And I could use it for, do you have this in a yellow color, or do you have this in a large size? So I can use that stem and then make my own sentences. So do you have is one. Give me more examples. No, from the script, I want you to choose from the script. Can I help you is one more. Fantastic, Mithilesh. Very good, Kushdeep. That's another phrase. I bought these, and then you can change the time and the date. So I bought these 2 days ago. I bought this last week. Very good. Is there a problem? That's a nice phrase as well. Okay, so before you ask your learners to produce their own conversations, what you can do is you can use the technique noticing. So which is what we just did. Help your learners read the conversation carefully and underline all the phrases that they can use with any other product that they want to return to a shop, or if they are a salesperson, what are the phrases that they can use. Now, before the learners can do that, it's a good idea to ask your learners to just read and practice this conversation as it is, without any change. So you divide them into pairs, ask one person to become a salesperson, the other person becomes a customer, and then they keep reading. So tell them, when you read, you please don't read out. Say it as if you are saying it in real life. You know, take care of your intonation. If it's a question, use the question tone. So remind them of these features. Also remind them of the audio that they just heard, and ask them, you know, how they read out or how they spoke, and then ask your learners to practice this. They've done once, ask them to swap roles. So somebody who became the salesperson now becomes a customer, and vice versa. They do it with one partner, ask them to get up, go around, pick any partner and practice the same conversation with them. Do it multiple times in your lesson. So by the time they read it 3 times, 4 times, they would have memorized most of these phrases. And then is the next step. And then you can ask them to change the product. So the person is returning shoes here. You have bought something, now return that product. So they take the help of the same conversation, probably with the same script. Most of the phrases, you can also provide them more useful phrases, and then they can write their own conversation in pairs, and then they can probably have a little classroom performance. So these ready conversations can also help you provide controlled practice if you're asking them to just practice the conversation as it is. If you are asking them to change, then it becomes freer practice, wherein the learners are, or semi-controlled practice, wherein the learners are using some of their own language and using some language from the audio. Okay? So that's a useful technique as well. Let's move ahead. So we have looked at noticing, we have looked at context, we have looked at language, and we've looked at some of the ideas to teach grammar, vocabulary, how to have speaking and writing activities. Now and this is the last activity for the session. Let's see how we can use a text-based approach to teaching language. So what are the stages that we follow? So for example, PPP, yeah, you must have heard of PPP lesson, presentation, practice, production. That's one lesson type. In the same way, text-based presentation of language is another lesson type. Now, please take a photo. If you have a phone or a laptop, take a screenshot or take a photo of this slide, because you would need it at every stage of this activity. So once you've taken a photo, please either show a thumbs up or write yes in the chat box so that I know you have taken a photo. Okay, now Thank you. Thank you for confirming. Now, please read through all the stages. Take about 15 seconds of time, read through the stages. If you attended my previous webinars, you would understand some of these terms. So just to help you, control practice is when they read out the conversation as it is. Freer practice is when they have their own conversation using some new phrases, some of the phrases from the audio. That could be freer practice, just to make it clear. Now, I'm going to describe a lesson stage by stage. When I describe the stage, at the end, I will ask you what stage it is. So from these green boxes, there are 6 green boxes here. You have to tell me what's the name of that stage, what activity that is. Okay, so and therefore you need these 6 stages in front of you. All right, ready everybody? Okay. Let's start then. So I'm going to describe the first stage, the first activity of the lesson, okay? Now, I'm going to do a lesson on Coca-Cola. It's a text about Coca-Cola's history. And this is how I begin my lesson, okay? So please listen to my description carefully. So we're not doing the activity here. We're only listening and then deciding which stage it is. Monica, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So I begin my lesson by showing the picture of soft drinks to my learners, and I divide them into pairs and ask them to talk about these 2 questions. Do you like soft drinks? Why not? What soft drinks are popular in your country? Why? All the learners talk in pairs, and then I elicit a few responses from across the room, and that stage is over. Now tell me, what stage it is? No, it's not Coca-Cola. Look at the 6 boxes and tell me what stage is it. Do you have that ready in front of you? So I'm talking about these. So can you identify what the stage would be called? Very good. Somebody said lead in, fantastic. So no cold drink. No, I'm not talking about this. Your answer is one of these 6 options. Okay. Yes, that's lead in. Very good. That's the first stage of my lesson. So when you begin your text-based approach to teaching language, you always begin your lesson with lead in. Any lesson, in fact, for that matter, you begin with a lead in. Lead in is something that engages learners, exploits their existing knowledge. We're not teaching them anything new. We're only leading them to the lesson, the theme of the lesson. So lead in. All right, good. Okay, thank you for saying you don't like soft drinks. Your learners would say probably the same thing in the lesson. Okay, ready for the next one? So you have to write the name or the text from one of these 6 boxes as the answer. So yes, this is lead in. Okay, after this, I ask my learners to read the question and then show them the text and ask them to read and answer the question. The text is mainly about, so I want my learners to focus on the main idea of the text. I engage them individually, they read the text, then I put them in pairs for peer check of answers, and then I elicit the answer from the whole class. I also ask them to justify their answers. Very good. Somebody said there are 2 answers. One is correct, one is not. No, some of you are still writing history. Please, if you have the photo of the 6 boxes, that's what you write as your answers. Reading for gist, fantastic. So Nali and somebody else before also, that's the answer. Reading for gist. Well done. So why it is not reading for specific piece of information? Because some of you said reading for specific piece of information. Please go watch the first webinar, you will get the answer. But specific information is when you ask learners to look at the particular part of the text and answer. Here I'm asking them to focus on the entire text and understand the main idea. And therefore it is not specific piece of information, but the gist, the overall meaning. Fantastic. Okay, after this, I ask my learners to read the questions, which are true, false statements. I ask them to read the text again. I read the statements first that they have to mark true or false. I ask them to read the text again and mark the sentences true or false. They do it individually because it's a reading activity. They all are reading. Then they are divided into pairs to confirm their answers, discuss their answers with their partners. Then at the end, the teacher does the feedback. And if the answers are wrong, I get other learners who have got the answers correct to say why that's the correct answer or an incorrect answer. Well, some of you have written freer practice. No, this is not freer practice. Some of you have written reading for specific info. Well done. Thumbs up to them. They're reading here. There's no fear practice. Fear practice is where they produce their own language, where you are not controlling their language. In this activity, they are not producing any of their own language. Okay. So you discuss the answers, and this is the stage, reading for specific information. Or sometimes you could have open-ended questions and ask them to find the answers. That could become reading for details. All right, so well done those who said reading for specific piece of information. Ready for the next one? Okay. Now I focus on the language because I'm doing text-based presentation of language. So I want them to know whether they know the meaning of past passive. So if you look at the sentence, only 9 drinks were sold. The first factory was opened. So my aim is to teach them past passive. And this is a guided discovery task. I divide my learners into groups, ask them to read these 2 sentences, answer the questions A to D, and then rewrite the 2 bullet sentences into active voice. So that's what my learners do. Then I do the whole class feedback. And by the end of this, I would then ask my concept check questions. Like, do we know the doer of the action? Do we know who did the action? No. Is it important to know? No. So what is important in these sentences? I'm so sorry. So what is important in these sentences? Action. So these A to D are my concept check questions. And again, I'm taking a back seat. I'm not even asking these concept check questions. I'm letting my learners read the concept check questions on their own, look at the sentences, and then answer, and discovering the meaning of the target structure. Okay, I'm still not asked for the answer, so don't write anything. The stage is not over yet. So this is active. This is just a part of the activity, this is meaning. Okay, because I'm helping learners understand the meaning of the past passive. In the next part, I ask them to look at the sentences again, and I ask them how the verb is formed. So it's was, were, was plus past participle, or were plus past participle. What is this? Is it clarification of meaning, form, or pronunciation? What did I just do? What did I focus on here? If learners do this, are they focusing on the form, the structure of the verb, the meaning, or the pronunciation? What are they learning here? Well, grammar is too broad. No, it's neither meaning, nor pronunciation, nor grammar. Structure, yes, but what's the word that we use for it? Look at your 6 boxes. Give me the word from there. No, this is not control practice. They are not yet practicing. I'm only helping them understand. This is still understanding stage. All right, this is form. So teaching of form using the guided discovery task. Okay. Then I want them to say these sentences. Okay. So I'll tell my learners, listen and listen carefully. Repeat after me. Only 9 drinks a day were sold. Only 9 drinks a day were sold. Everyone, and then everybody repeats 1, 2, 3 times. You draw their attention to the weak form were. Listen, were form. Only 9 drinks a day were sold. Were sold. Because many learners might say were sold, which is not correct. Yeah, so you kind of focus on these, and then you focus on the stress in the sentence. Only 9 drinks a day were sold. Yeah, and then so main stress and all the other words that are stressed as well. Okay, now tell me, what am I doing here? What am I focusing on? Meaning, form, pronunciation. Very good. That's teaching pronunciation. It is still not, control practice, yes, but control practice refers to application of the target structure. So here they are, even if they don't use their brain, they will still be able to repeat the sentences, and therefore it is not controlled practice. It is just clarifying pronunciation to them. Okay, so the stage is teaching pronunciation of the target language. Okay, now the next stage is, I then want them to find other such verbs in the text. So they underline all these. And based on their understanding of the analysis that they did earlier. And then I ask them to fill in the gaps. Yeah. Now use your understanding by filling in these gaps. What is this stage? Identify from the 6, wherein learners fill in the gaps with the past passive verb forms. So don't write number 3, just say what stage it is. Finally, it's a chance of controlled practice. I think earlier we got controlled practice multiple times, but this is the stage. Controlled practice is learners can't produce a lot of their own language. There's a fixed answer, and they're only focusing on a particular thing. Okay, so learners do not have any freedom to use their own language here, and therefore we call it controlled practice. Fantastic. And the last stage is, I then ask them to find out about, or do a bit of research and find out about another company. Okay, Google, read newspapers, whatever, and find out the pieces of information in blue. Yeah, and I tell them to remember to use the past passive verbs, and then I put them in groups where whatever information they have found out, they tell each other. So for example, somebody found out about S. Chand Publishing House, and they could say it was founded by so and so, it was founded in the year so and so. The books are published by them, the books in writing, grammar, whatever are published by them. So all of that, yeah. And then they use the past passive verb forms and say it. What? Wow, there is already an answer there. So that is freer speaking. Yes, that's the stage. So that's the last stage. So these are the stages that you follow when you want to do a text-based presentation of language in your lessons. Okay, so let's look at the correct stages. Before that, let me just highlight this. So it could be a speaking activity as well, or it could be a writing activity. It doesn't have to be only speaking practice at the end of text-based presentation of language. You could also ask them to write about a company using the information that they have found. Now write, describe using the past passive verbs. Okay, so take a photo of this, please. This will come handy if you're planning to do a text-based presentation of language in your lesson. Okay. All right. Photo taken. If you could just say yes and confirm. I mean, if you want to, you don't have to. Okay. Now, just a few tips here before we go. Some other tips. So the first one is, it's very important that you have a careful selection of text. The text should be culturally appropriate. The text should have the level of language appropriate to the level of your learners. If there are no pictures, and if you want to add pictures to it, do that. So please make sure that the text that you have selected is appropriate for the purpose of teaching language. Once you have selected the text, then you identify the scope for language teaching. So I have this piece of text. What can I teach with the help of this text? Can I teach any vocabulary? Is there any grammatical structure that's repeated throughout the text? Can I use it for that? Or is it a conversation and can I use it for functional exponents and give some speaking practice to my learners? Please identify the scope for teaching language. Then ensure the comprehension of the text before you teach them language. And I have reiterated this throughout the webinar, that please do your comprehension exercises first before you focus on grammar, vocabulary, or functional exponents if you're using text-based presentation of language. Please do not explain rules to them. Please do not explain meanings to them. Design guided discovery tasks. I showed you quite a few examples today of guided discovery tasks. Help your learners discover the rules on their own. And the last one, provide enough support to help your learners produce language. So that would only come through the stages that you follow. And if you can give them more useful language, for example, the conversation of taking the product back to shop. The expressions are there in the conversation, but if you want to use more expressions, provide that before you expect your learners to use the language. Okay, so these are some other tips that you can keep in mind for teaching language using the text. So that's all from my side. We looked at how to teach grammar, how to teach vocabulary, and how to build speaking and writing skills of your learners using different types of texts. So thanks, Monica. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Manisha. It was quite a wonderful and an interesting session, as always. Truly enjoyed it, especially the part wherein you shared happinesses. It's one of my favorites, though. I keep downloading pictures from Pinterest somehow, and I keep sharing to family and friends. I love that part. So thank you so
Maybe
much.
next time you could write your own then.
Definitely, I would love to do so. Thank you so much. I appreciate. Teachers, the participants, please stay with us. I'm sharing the QR code for the quiz.
I mean, if they have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer the questions. But if you think you need time for your quiz within the session time, I'm okay with that as well.
Sure, certainly. Let's spark in the questions in case they have anything. So please take a picture of this QR code. You could scan through this, and I am also sharing the link of the quiz in the chat box. So please do not leave the participants. That's a request. I'll keep sharing my screen for a couple of minutes so that all of you could scan this QR code. This would take you to the link for the quiz. And as I earlier mentioned, I'm repeating that part again. You need to register through the same email ID through which you had registered for all of the sessions, all the 3 sessions of Miss Manisha. So kindly do the needful so that you all are able to participate. And it's a great and exciting opportunity for us to win the quiz and get the Amazon gift vouchers from us. So,
and unfortunately, I can't participate.
True that. Even I can't do that. Both of us are in the same boat.
Right.
So
Okay.
please go ahead and do the needful, teachers. All the participants. That's pretty easy, pretty simple to do, I'm sure. Because without this, you won't be able to get the link for our quiz. This is the QR code for the quiz that I'm sharing right up there on the screen. And in case there are any questions, you are most welcome to please ask. Manisha is still there with us. And in the chat box also, there's a link for the quiz.
I think they would be more interested in the prizes right now.
Right.
So
please feel free to ask in case you have any of the questions. You're most welcome. You can even check the chat box. The link for the quiz is even there and up on my screen. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for your presence. And for Manisha, I really wish to thank you for the wonderful session which was there. And teachers, in case you still want me to share my screen, please let me know in the chat box. The quiz link is repeatedly being shared there. Just check the chat box. The QR code is also up there in the chat box.
I think, Monica, let's reshare your screen so that the teachers can see or take screenshot of the QR code if they haven't. So I think for like next 5 minutes, let's just share the QR code and link with them.
Okay, it's right there. Participants, you could see my screen again. It's up there, the QR code for the quiz. I'll keep it for another couple of minutes for you all.
I think in the chat box, somebody suggested sessions for primary classes. Well, that's a suggestion for S-Chan, so I'm just sharing that. But also there is one webinar that I presented earlier, which I'm not sure S-Chan probably could say where the recording is, but it is on making grammar fun for children. So I think one of the participants wanted some activities for primary classes.
Certainly, we would look into it. Thank you for the suggestion. Also, you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, S-Chan Academy. All of the recordings would be there. You could find those.
All right, could I just thank everybody and then take your leave? Maybe I don't think some participants have got busy with the quiz. Good luck, everyone. I hope you clear the quiz and enjoy those vouchers that you get. And thank you, everybody. You have been a wonderful group of participants, very active participation. I really thoroughly enjoyed presenting these webinars. So thank you, S-Chan, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have just stopped sharing. I forgot that. All right. Okay. I'll take your leave.
Bye. Yeah. Thanks. Bye. And as I earlier mentioned, participants, I'm repeating the same again. So the quiz link will be activated by 11:59 p.m. till tomorrow, which is 23rd of April. So please scan the link. The QR code is up there on the screen. It's all there in the chat box. And for the previous sessions, in case any one of you would want to go back and see the previous sessions, please feel free to go and check the YouTube link for S-Chan Academy. It's all up there. You could do that. I hope everybody has checked the chat box. In case there are any queries, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. Thanks a lot. And please fill up the feedback forms. You would get those over your registered email IDs because I could see some of you messaging for the same. There's no attendance link though, teachers. So don't worry about that. And please actively participate in the quiz so that you get the opportunity to win the Amazon vouchers from us. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate everybody's patience and participation. Looking forward to see you all in our further CPD session. Thank you so much, everyone.